Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's Jodessy. So I was on Snapchat, I think, or maybe Instagram the other day, and Cardi posted a really good question. She said, you know what, if you could ask the presidential candidates one thing, what would you ask them? And like that really started like getting the gears turning for me. And it turns out like I have so many things that I would ask that I feel like aren't ever really brought to the public spectrum or like asked at these roundtables and things of that nature. She brought up police brutality, of course, and police brutality is a big thing, and it is, and I already spoke about it a little bit, but it is that moment where you see a light behind you, or you see like a police officer turn off their lights, or a police officer has been following you for 10 blocks and your heart is beating in your throat because it can end really, really wrongly. And I'm not sure if that's a feeling that everyone has, or if it's just the African American experience or the minority experience or whatever experience it really is. But I do know that it's terrifying because for most people, all you really have to worry about is getting a ticket or maybe getting a fine, or like, hey, maybe you got a warrant, you go to jail. But with the African American experience, it can be, you can be the next hashtag. It depends on who is stopping you, and you can just lose your life off of something like that. So that was a really powerful question to ask. And I had a few questions that I had on my own, and I had some questions, and I really want to hear your questions. So like, I know some of you guys commented on her post and said your questions, but like, if you can please just comment down below some of your questions, and now I'll get into some of mine. I really want to know, when are we going to take efforts to revive the sea and wildlife and clean our oceans and rivers? When are we going to take efforts like those seriously? When are we going to come up with plans, actual fortified plans that makes the plastic waste that we create reusable? And I'm seeing in other countries they're using plastic bottles and plastic bags in order to make finite structures like houses. And I want to know, when are we going to adopt some of those policies and like make them law and make them mandatory for everywhere, in order to just help out the earth a little bit. I want to know when public schools are going to get the funding that they deserve. I want to know when city employees are going to get the pay raises that they deserve. I want to know, why is it possible for somebody to fight over war overseas in a war with us and come back and be homeless. I want to know, why is counseling not mandated for all veterans? Why is it that young people do not learn their constitutional rights and other things like that, like what to do during a stop and frisk or whatever have you? Why is that not being taught in public schools, not just in the urban areas but in public schools overall? Why are young people walking around without the knowledge of what to do in a certain situation? We've seen that in the Central Park 5 Netflix documentary. But why is it so, like, why is there such a gap? If these are our rights and rights that we're supposed to know, why aren't the rights being taught until high school, really? I think that's the first time I ever really dealt with the Constitution, and it wasn't even like explicitly taught. It was like, we got 2, 3, 4 weeks on the Constitution, and we mostly, I think, studied like the preamble, and like we didn't really go through the rights, and we didn't really go through like, what are cops allowed to do, what are cops not allowed to do, what, like, when should you ask for your lawyer, when, like, do you need an adult? Like, we didn't really go through that. And the thing is, why, like, where I noticed us fighting in a lot of schools to incorporate LGBT education, and I'm like, listen, I'm not gonna hold you. The curriculum's coming out. I'm not gonna hold you. LGBT and education is important. It can be taught right along, sex ed, where it's just like, this is what you might be doing, and guess what, if you're doing with this person, you might get this. And just, I feel like it doesn't really or can be taught in any way, shape, or form. Just not making the assumptions that somebody is automatically straight or somebody's automatically gay based on appearance, based on norms and things like that. And just include more they, them pronouns and things like that. But this knowing your rights, it could save a life. It could save a life, literally, figuratively. And I feel like maybe that should be something that's pushed in curriculums a little bit more. We're fighting on whether we should teach abortion or abstinence or whatever the hell. And honestly, people are going to do whatever they want. So to me, it's just a little bit... it's a little bit ridiculous. So I'm just gonna go through my list real fast to make sure I hit everything that I commented under her page. No? Okay. Homeless shelters, like that we would have I wanted to know if we could have homeless shelters that were catered to veterans and people who have served the country. I would ask for penalties for all these fake 911 calls that feel because you feel threatened just because a black person is living their life or a person of color is living their life. Yeah, there needs to be some sort of penalty for these little fake 911 calls, because it's actually a little bit ridiculous, or following people in the store. And I'm wondering, because okay, my last thing is I noticed it, and I noticed that the Hasidic Jews in my area have their own police force, and they have their own police cars, their own police patrol, blah 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 blah. They're going around the neighborhood. Fine. Then I noticed during it was Ramadan. I noticed it was the last 2 days of Ramadan, right before Big Eid. I noticed that I saw a Muslim police car, and it was Muslim whatever, and it was a police car with sirens and everything. And you know what, they're driving around to patrol these Muslim areas. And I'm like, oh, okay, how come blacks don't have the same thing? Because out of all groups, Muslim are really they're really up there these days, though. It's especially when you're wearing a hijab or a niqab or something more traditional. Y'all up there these days with the danger factor with that. But I was wondering, why don't black people have the same thing? And when black people did try to have the same thing, i.e. the Black Panther movement, it became it had to be dismantled, and people were thrown in jail, when other groups of people are allowed to have a force, a police force, or a community force, whatever you want to call it, that represents who they are as a people and that makes them feel safe in their communities. Why can't we as black people, as African Americans, as whatever you want to call us, have that same thing and have those same privileges? Especially because I think we've been one of the most hated groups, and one of the most groups that have the highest incarceration rates and have the highest police kills rates, or whatever the hell you want to call it. I'm why isn't there an avenue for us to then feel protected and feel safe in our own communities? And I just think it's something that's needed. So I want a lawmaker that is going to be focused on certain things like that, and I haven't seen one yet. And you know what, the closest I've gotten right now is AOC, and she's not even speaking about these same issues, but she is speaking about issues that I haven't heard spoken about in ever. And I think it's really refreshing, and I think maybe these new millennials coming into play will definitely change the legal system as we know it. And that's the powerful thing about living in a democracy, is having a voice and using your voice, and just advocating for change and creating that change eventually. So Let me know via in the comments below, what would you like to change? What would you like to ask your lawmakers, your presidential candidates, whomever? And you know, what do you think? If you think that one of my ideas or one of the things I wanted to ask or whatever is kind of crazy or insane, you can just let me know in the comments below. I appreciate all feedback. So thank you guys, and you guys will see me, your girl Jodessy, a little bit later. Bye guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.